In this assistant we will voice our actually own and market's perspective on basically Ro's future while discussing Desert Garden Association quote for 2022, to say the very least truly in opposition to mainstream thinking generous basically recall that you should accept this and another assumption with some reluctance, since predicting anything is a terrible endeavor also predicting the possible destiny of a novel significantly unsteady financial asset like Desert Garden Association in an unobtrusive manner. As of now we ought to head into it in an unpretentious manner before we jump significant into the Desert Spring Association esteem estimate and answer inquiries. If sort of Rose is a savvy hypothesis or not, why will Rose truly succeed or fail? Or why will abandoned Spring Association esteem rise or drop? We ought to quickly for the most part throw a gander at what for the most part is by and large Rose and its to-date history. Incredibly the whole crypto world for the most part is on an edge of an evident bear market. Bitcoin explicitly has hung half from its unbeatable extremely high amidst the buy and large greater market explicitly drops impacted by fuming extension and us dealt with rate increases, which really is genuinely huge. Monetary supporters basically are selling hazardous assets and moving into extra consistent business areas kind of, as opposed to prevalent thinking. Crypto especially is at this point seen as an uncommonly risky fundamentally play, and hence the closeout our algo still sees a some buy and large green in 2022, especially in the truly second piece of the year. This especially is really reflected in our 2022 gauges, which especially is genuinely critical at the truly present time. Bitcoin needs to truly find a local base before we can move the fundamentally alternate way and for the most part modify the direction. At the point when Bitcoin settles in the new expense range, altcoins will really start to sort of do similarly. We especially have seen this present circumstance truly ordinarily in the isolated and later history in an unobtrusive manner. Our expense assumption model in a real sense is certainly negative for the accompanying 90 days with a pinch of a purchaser market at the redirect of the quarters from Q1 to Q2, especially in opposition to mainstream thinking. We sort of expect whales and other genuinely more noteworthy players in the market to fold up, filling their packs over that time, which will cause a generally okay an unforeseen crypto spike in a significant manner. Captain Altcoin Bunch made an expense assumption model with a different approach to pretty manage crypto that considers both for the most part concentrated assessment and exceptionally key assessment of each undertaking, which is genuinely huge fundamentals that we sort of survey. Basically our bunch tokenomics use case genuinely neighborhood tries liquidity and exchange openness exposure and theoretical pretty potential, and a couple of pretty other select components made in our crypto lab in an especially significant way. Ro's worth assumption for the accompanying 90 days. Coming up next is an even layout of how should for the most part Ro's encourage for now for the accompanying 90 days according to our assumption model. Desert Spring Association worth assumption 2022. The majority of experts in every practical sense agree that this by and large bear market will fundamentally get through basically for the essential quarter of 2022 going before we sort of see a couple of change and especially little example reversals, which is genuinely huge. Captain Altcoin's assumption model brings market assessment into a record and answers suitably for the most part in opposition to prevalent thinking. The accompanying generally is a month-by-month breakdown of 2022 Ro's worth assumption 2025. Our estimate model sees generally Ro's coming to 0.00970 in 2025, which in a real sense is very critical. What will in a real sense Ro's especially be most certainly worth in 5 years, which is very critical. The expense of generally Ro's in 5 years could in a real sense lie around 0 according to Captain Altcoin's figure model, or so they thought. Desert Spring Association worth estimate 2030-2040. What Desert Garden Association will generally be genuinely worth in 2030, which is genuinely huge. Our expecting model sees Desert Garden Association coming to 0 in 2030. What Desert Spring Association will for the most part be extremely worth in 2040, which sort of is genuinely huge. Our gauging model sees Desert Garden Association coming to zero in 2040 in a kind of enormous manner. Will abandon Spring Association supersede perform Bitcoin? No, Desert Spring Association won't supersede or sort of overpower BTC. Incredibly, could abandon Garden Anytime Association in every practical sense reach one in an unpretentious way? To be sure, Desert Spring Association can truly reach one close to the completion of 2022. Could abandon Garden Anytime Association really reach 10, which truly is very huge? No, our assumption model sees no potential open doors for Desert Garden Association to explicitly reach 10 in the genuinely shorter midterm period, fundamentally in opposition to prevalent thinking. Could abandon Spring Anytime Association sort of reach 100 in an all things considered huge way? No, our assumption model sees no amazing open doors for Desert Garden Association to reach 100 in the short or midterm period, which truly is genuinely critical. How most certainly high will abandon Plant Association go? Our deciding model sees Desert Garden Association cost crashing and dropping to move towards zero in an eliminated future. Is Desert Garden Association extremely worth buying? Which explicitly is very critical. We don't essentially see an unbelievable future for Desert Garden Association, which is genuinely huge. It justifies buying similarly as a transient speculation with a good explicitly leave technique. Most certainly, in spite of prevalent thinking, Desert Spring Association basically is positively not a good especially long stretch. By and large, hold is Desert Garden Association. An insightful hypothesis. Desert Garden Association really is unquestionably not a savvy interest, as we would basically see it. Why? To be sure, it most certainly faces an extremely wild contention from certainly other truly relative crypto projects. Doesn't essentially stand separated, with its development and improvement doesn't sort of have a genuine neighborhood. Counting inspectors and exposure chasing after bunch, and the gathering behind the endeavor explicitly is dicey in an exceptionally huge manner. Could abandon Garden Anytime Association explicitly make you a head honcho in an unobtrusive manner? No, Desert Garden Association couldn't influence you a big shot as we anytime to don't actually see it doing a 10x expense increase anytime from this point forward, or so they in a real sense thought. What some will abandon Garden Association certainly be worth, which is very huge for the fleeting future. It could explicitly reach 0.0303. Which sort of is very critical in every practical sense long stretch 8 to 10 years. It will likely drop to zero or somewhere near there in an unpretentious manner. Why will abandon Garden Association